Anteam's recent debut sets the stage for the next chapter of the Hive original stories. But this is, of course, the story of their group. So let's discuss this, looking not only at the music video, but also the album and the lyrics, and also some of the trailers that we've seen for Dark Moon of the Grey City. Hello friends and sunflowers, my name is Lena and welcome back to my channel. I am a Hive theorist, and today of course we're going to be talking about Anteam's Under the Skin music video, and the Dark Moon, the Grey City story just in general, and kind of tying all of these things together and letting you guys know what to expect. So make sure you grab a cozy cup of coffee, hot chocolate, which is what I have today, tea, and let's get started. So if you're new to Hive and Hive stories and kind of how they work, often when they have a music video, they'll be talking about an issue or something like that, and then also talk about the storyline. So it'll be about the storyline, but it'll also be covering something that's more relatable to a wide variety of people. In the Under the Skin music video, I think it's probably pretty obvious that this main topic of focus is bullying. You don't really need to know the story to see what's going on here. And bullying is a real issue in Japan and Korea. This is, of course, a Japanese group, and honestly, anywhere else in the world too. But I know that the bullying can be, like, especially bad in those countries. But of course, the bullying actually isn't just something relatable. It's also something that's going on in Dark Moon, the Grey City. And I think the music video did a really good job of sort of showing both of these viewpoints. So I'm going to do my best to break down the most important parts so that you completely understand everything if that's what you're going for. Which I hope you are, because that's why you're here, right? So I'm gonna do my best to break everything down for you guys. If you could do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up, that would be great. Of course, it helps me, but it also helps you, because YouTube will then recommend you videos like this in the future as well. So you'll be able to keep up to date. Okay, let's take Kay's leave and dive on in, shall we? So this is not the first time that we've actually seen Kay, Taki, Iji, and Nicholas in the Dark Moon universe before. So Anteam's story, as I said, is Dark Moon, the Grey City, and it's a story that's fictional, obviously, and focuses on them as wolves becoming a wolf pack. But they also appear in Dark Moon, the Blood Altar, which is in the exact same universe. It's the same universe, same timeline, everything. And really, if you just want to confirm this fact for yourself, despite the fact the title is basically the same, you really just have to look at Anhypen's Drunk Dazed music video, where you see Kay and EJ. And of course they also reference this music video in the extended version by literally like just extending those scenes a little bit. So yeah, they're the wolves that are oppositing? So yeah, those are the wolves that are opposite to Anhypen's vampires. What we know from that story is that Kay, his character is named Khan. I'm not going to go with the alternate character names just because it gets really confusing really quickly, even for me. Who's the one who's saying it, so I'm just not going to say the name. So Kay is like the pack leader of the wolves. Although, of course, this is not the case in real life. We know the leader of the group is Iji, and this is the same for Anhypen too, so it's not really a surprise. Anhypen's leader is Jungwon, but in the story, their leader is Heesung's character. I also just want to remind you guys that I think most of this story was probably written well before Anteam actually was formed, so the characters are probably going to be a little bit different than their real-life counterparts. Don't really think about it too much. It's just a thing that happened. I like to imagine it as the members are like actors portraying their characters. So yes, we've seen the wolves before, but even though we've sort of seen them before, we don't have a ton of information on them. Like, we have some stuff, but not like a lot. Which makes sense. Anhypen's story is about the Anhypen boy vampires, and so the like wolves are kind of like a side character, a side story, and they don't have as much focus. But here's what we do know about the wolves in general from just everywhere that I could find. They fall in love on the eclipses of the moon with the first person that they see. They can fight, and they're strong, and they can take a hit. So I'm guessing that they just are stronger or more resilient than a human would be. I'm not sure if they can heal quickly or not. They bond together like a true wolf pack, and they howl together. They do keep their status as a wolf a secret, especially in the future, but also in the current timeline for them as well. But they also keep Anhypen's identity as a secret, so speaking of Anhypen's identities as vampires, they hate vampires. Mostly this is because, as we see in the flashbacks in chapter 2 of the webtoon, vampires killed a lot of the wolves. And finally, what we can infer from the fact that they're still in high school 20 years in the future, which is actually when Dark Moon the Blood Altar takes place, they seem to age slowly, or potentially not at all if they don't want to, I think. I think there are some older wolves though, so I guess it's just like a slow aging process. So yeah, those are like the main points. We're gonna get into some more details though, because of course we do know a little bit more now that the webtoon and story has started to come out a little bit, since this video is about 2 months late. Thank you. Sorry to the person who keeps asking me where this video is. Other than that, we know that this story has a found family theme, which is actually one of my all-time favorite tropes, so I'm really excited to see it develop. It's just nice when all these people from different backgrounds come together and like become like a close-knit friend group or family, essentially. I just love that. We also know that this entire story of the Dark Moon, the Grey City, takes place in a place called Greyville. It's a very aptly named port city. Of course, it means the Grey City because it's Greyville. They're very creative with their names over at Hybe. We also actually see Yuma and the other boys in the Under the Skin music video wearing what looks like the Greyville City school uniform, because it's got a big G on it. I can only assume. But speaking of uniforms in schools, we also see the Sunshine City uniform, like when they're playing Nightball and stuff like that, which is the uniform of the city of the school, which is the uniform of the school that they are attending in the Blood Altar, which is 20 years in the future. And like, I don't think you need to understand Enhypen's story necessarily to follow this story, just if you were wondering about that. You don't have to go read like the Blood Altar in order to understand this, especially so far. I feel like there's not that much that's like relying on that. There's some background info, which I will share with you, that I think you like just fills out the understanding of the universe, but it's not necessary to read it if you are not interested in reading it. But of course, if you are interested in reading it, The Dark Moon just in general has been my favorite out of the webtoon series, so keep that in mind. I think it's also like number 3 or 4 and like the top like drama related webtoons on the webtoon app. I might have the category of that wrong. So yeah, it's pretty good and I can absolutely recommend it. But yeah, this is Anteam's story, and this story focuses on them becoming like a group for the first time, like a group of wolves, which of course is contextually given to us in the name of the album. It's literally called First Howling Me, like the first time they come together to howl, hence the found family theme. But I am a little confused about some of the tie-ins. So vampires are definitely a big antagonist in this series. The wolves hate them for what they did, and obviously they're a major threat. But they, according to the Blood Altar, shouldn't appear until Suha is born. I won't say why, because it's kind of a spoiler, but they appear when she's born. So when the events of Dark Moon the Blood Altar happen, she's like 16 or something like that. I don't know if that's like an oversight or they're just basing it off of like maybe when they assume the Blood Altar will end, or maybe it's just like a rough estimation. They're like, oh, like about 20 years in the past. Yeah, that's fine. But I just find that this is like a very specific thing that is kind of weird for me. Cause yeah, I mean, I guess maybe they just didn't want to like spoil the fact that it's related to the birth of Suha, which I guess I kind of spoiled, but I didn't say why. If you want to know, I recommend reading it or checking out my other videos where I talk about Enhypen. But let me know like what you think about that. Why do you think they say like 20 years in the past when technically that shouldn't be the right number? Should be like 16 years or maybe 17, 18. I don't remember how old Suha is off the top of my head. And then the other thing is like I kind of wonder if the story of Dark Moon, the Grey City is going to jump ahead to the point of view of the wolves in Dark Moon, the Blood Altar, because we not only see them in the music video in the Sunshine City like school playing Nightball, which again they don't really attend until when Suha is in high school, but also in the extended version they also show the scene where like the 4 island boys, essentially Kei, Tucky, Iji, and Nicholas, are like chasing after Suha, which by the way happens for a really simple story reason. It's just that the other werewolves were off investigating a werewolf trafficking incident and they just haven't come back yet. So that's really all there is to it. I know people are curious because they're like, what? Why is it only the island boys? It's that's the reason. Also because at the time they didn't know how many other people were going to be there. Anyways, they made a story reason for why there's only 4. But yeah, sorry, I got off topic. Why do you think they're in the future, in the Sunshine School, in the place with Suha? Like, for the school, were they just like visiting? Was it like a game? Because clearly they are supposed to be in Greyville at this point. But I'm wondering if maybe the Sunshine City, but I'm kind of wondering if maybe the Sunshine City Nightball thing is actually just a mirror from the past, where it's like, yeah, that's the present day, and he's remembering how he felt in the past as well, so it's like a situation that just so happens to mirror what Kay felt in both times, like it's the same feeling. I don't know, let me know what you guys think. Also, just a cute thing I wanted to mention, on the Sunshine City, like, school uniforms, there's also Latin that's written on them, and it says Sol Lucet Omnibus, which I probably just butchered. Sorry. But it basically means that the sun shines for everyone, regardless of social status, money, etc., etc., etc. You know, if you're really rich or really poor, the sun still will shine on you. Doesn't really matter. In the sun's eyes, you're the same. You both deserve the sunlight, for better or worse. In a way, this kind of makes me think of, like, matching with the idea of the bullying, where it's like, everyone is equal. Even if this person is putting you down, it does not make you a lesser person, nor too does it actually raise them up. But it's also kind of cute and mildly funny from a story standpoint as well, understanding that they're the werewolves, they transform at night, and of course there's the moon, which reflects the sunlight, but also the fact that in most cases, vampires can't go out into the sun, which I just find very funny. The N-Hypen boys, I think, are an exception, but there's a reason for that again, are spoilers, so I'm not going to get into. But yeah, it does make me think of the bullying and, of course, of the vampire antagonists of this story, which, you know, I think that's going to be like a kind of like these are like the main themes, right? Like, of the story, the bullying and the vampires. So just to like dive into some background information again, Kay's character seems to have always been a wolf, and in a previous village he was like literally like abused, and he was locked into like a shed during his like transformations and just like badly mistreated, and eventually the people who adopt him, who are his parents currently, they're like I think they're like a little bit of more of a slightly older couple. I guess they've never had kids. They saw the situation that he was in and they were like, well, we don't care. They adopt him and he goes with them. But they still have to move around a lot because people are just inherently mistrustful, apparently. So they keep having to, you know, move. And they eventually end up in Grayville, where his parents run an inn. And he's getting bullied here too, mainly because, if you've read even just the first chapter, he's called a devil, which is a nickname that came from a previous town, so his reputation preceded him. And they called him that because he was a very good fighter, you know, getting into trouble in high school. Whoa, he's the devil with his fights because he hits really hard. And so they named him that again after like an altercation with the people who are bullying him now. I'm trying to say this in a very vague way so that I'm not like completely spoiling things, but I just want you to understand the situation, you know? Anyways, the story actually really starts when, of course, Taki, Nico, and Iji come in with, of course, their, like, pack leader of three, technically, I guess, Giri, which is, like, their guardian, kind of. It looks like he's their guardian, but I think he's basically, like, the equivalent of a pack leader. And they move into the inn in Grayville, and they discover all the bullying and all that stuff, and it really hasn't moved past that yet at this point in time that I'm recording, but I am expecting that they will discover that Kay's a wolf fairly soon. Might even be the next chapter, which I think is coming out tomorrow at the time that I'm filming this, so I think with that you're mostly caught up. Obviously I'm going to drop details here and there, but anyways, in some of the promotional stuff for Grey City, it kind of seems to frame EJ, Nicholas, especially Nicholas, and Taki as, like, the bad guys. I think that's a red herring. I think it's just marketing. You know, it suggests that they're leaving these evil claw marks everywhere, and just, like, a whole bunch of stuff. And first of all, we know because of the webtoon that the claw marks are just, like, territorial markings that they leave so that other wolves will leave the area alone. They know that there's a werewolf, like, pack that's already in that territory. So saying, like, hey, move along, like, we're already here. And while we're on the topic of actually the promo videos, I do want to talk about the scene where Kay is being bullied, which is also one of the scenes in the music video. They kind of turn into dogs by these people that are bullying him. This is symbolic. They don't actually turn into dogs. I think it's how Kay sees them, partially because he's just saying, like, they're pathetic. He's a wolf and they're dogs. He's better than them. But also, they're literally dogs following their, like, leader. They're no better than dogs. And the leader is this guy. Croc. What an unfortunate name. I don't want to spoil too much of why, but I'll give you context. Just know that Croc's dad basically owns the entire town, and anyone with debt, which I guess is like everyone, owes him money. So you can just kind of take the context from there or go read the webtoon, which I really recommend. There's not that much out yet, so it's really easy to catch up, and it's really good. Anyways, we also see that in like the very first scene of the very first chapter of the webtoon, Croc gets killed! Yay! He gets killed by some unnamed wolves, which I'm either thinking is the pack that Yuma is from, or like another unidentified, potentially antagonistic pack that like maybe could try to invade their territory. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I think this now finally catches you up on the basics of the story in this universe. Like I said, I think it'll have a couple of main like antagonists, problem points. The vampires, obviously. Yuma's wolf pack, any other potential wolf packs, and then something going on with the town itself on the human side as well, I'm assuming, mostly because of the whole like rich guy owns everything and is also a jerk kind of thing that's going on. But also, we know that it's going to focus on the idea of them coming together to perform the Howling. And speaking of the Howling, I'm not actually sure what the Howling might be for. The way that their like intro concept video kind of framed it, it almost feels supernatural. And I mean, they're kind of like supernatural beings, so I guess that would make sense, right? I talked about this a little bit in the video where I broke down like the concept trailer and the photos in more detail, where, you know, there's several things, like there's no lone wolves, which is kind of like a theme which ties in with the bullying, and then how they all come together to increase their strength. And I do think just in general them being together does increase the strength of the pack, but it also seems to suggest that like the connections that they form might be more than just like a regular friendship. Maybe, I don't know, tell me if it sounds off. I just wonder if they can communicate in other ways, or if this togetherness like brings them an additional power. For example, in Kay's like concept photo, he's levitating a rock. Is that because they were able to howl with a larger pack and they start to gain more powers? Or is it because he's the pack leader? I have no idea. However, we do know that when they howl together as one, it gives the members like power and feeling of connectedness, and they each have their own role. So every person, me included, I guess, if I was part of the pack, can recognize their own role and their own strength amongst the members. Even Haruha, who they single out in the like concept trailer as being like the weakest, and he says, even I have a role. So yeah, I think the Howling is actually going to be like one of the first goals of the story, when they have a goal, when they know what's going on. But we definitely know that it's going to be some kind of setbacks, largely the one that opens up the music video. Because whatever happened, there was clearly some kind of battle. I don't know against who. Vampires, werewolves, humans, some sort of battle happened. And the previous pack leader basically passes his alpha status on to Kay. So Kay becomes the leader. Hey, wait, didn't I already say who the leader was? Ah, Giri. Yeah, I think Giri's gonna die. Just consider that a Lena prediction. He deserved better. But listen, he was just some random side character, so they're expendable. Anyway, speaking more of the Under the Skin music video, it does focus a lot on specific characters. Mainly Kay, obviously, because he's like the main character, but also Yuma, Haruha, and Joe. The others, of course, have brief appearances here and there. They're going to feature everyone, but it mostly focuses on those four, which is hilarious because other than Kay, like the other three haven't even appeared in the webtoon yet. So, of course, this just probably tells us events that we can kind of expect in the future. So that's always fun. Let's see what we can infer from it. Kay's story is the largest focus here because, again, as I said, he's the main character. Almost all of his scenes can be compared to something that's happening in the webtoon or something you can imagine easily happening in the webtoon. He's getting bullied or ignored by everyone because they don't also want to be bullied, obviously. He also seems to purposefully distance himself from others so they don't get drawn into them, including, of course, Taki, Iji, and Nicholas, who want to help him. But I think this bullying is actually affecting him a lot. Kay spends a lot of the music video grappling with loneliness. And the words that are scrawled on his desk, which are certainly the bullying, and we see it in the webtoon too, could also actually just be true reflections of himself. The words that people say about him, and the wolves even, would feel true to him, I think, to a degree. That's why he pushes everyone away. Like I said, in the webtoon, they call him the devil, and he had all that previous experience with being cast away from other places and being locked in a shed and all of that stuff that his character went through. I feel like you don't just like recover from that immediately. Like, you don't just get over that, you know what I'm saying? It would mess with your psyche a little bit. And like, I don't even think at that point in time when it first starts happening, he even really like knows that there's others like him. So he might just be like, wow, I'm like a monster. Yeah, I guess that's true. Because I feel like if you'd never seen like another werewolf, how would you know? So yeah, his character's cast out several times before, and he's waiting, without even realizing probably, for a pack that he can call home. In a way, actually, part of this makes me think it parallels Kay's actual story, like the actual person Kay, in just like a few ways, because he was originally in Island and didn't make it into the group, the final group, which was Enhypen, and so now he's gone through it more again, and he's finally in a debut group, and I do feel like maybe they took a little bit of inspiration from that journey, obviously in a completely different context, and that's kind of where I think the similarities end, but I do just find that interesting and I wanted to mention it. And I know that there's like a lot of really dark stuff that's happening in this, and I just want to say like it's not cool to like theorize about a real person's mental state. Characters, sure, we can do that, but like a real person, they should be the one to talk about anything in their mental state. So even though there's darker scenes like the old rooftop scene, where it seems like Kay's character is going to jump off, let's not like equate that to real life him, even though I did say that the situation reminded me of that. It's not the same. I just wanted to clear that up. Anyways, the rooftop scene. I don't really 100% understand it. I feel like it could be about two things. It's probably about the death of Giri, although it is unclear like where it falls in the timeline. It could be related to the bullying as well. Straight off the top of my head, like when you look at it, you're like, oh, it's because of the bullying. But I don't know if this whole thing is happening before or after the death of the previous alpha. And I have no idea when like Yuma's pack shows up exactly. Like, was it during that battle? Was it before that battle? After that battle? I'm gonna go with most likely Giri dies after he was accepted into their pack and he became the alpha of their pack. But he's probably still thinking he's not worthy of that, and he's still getting bullied in school for varying reasons. And Yuma is like offering friendship or perhaps like a joining of the packs with him. Like I said, we have no idea who was fighting who at this point. But this idea of friendship, saying like, hey, like you don't have to struggle through this, I'm right here. And I think after all of the turmoil that Kay's character has had in his life, I feel like at that moment, which we see kind of happening in the music video, he starts to turn around and he starts to embrace the part of himself that had previously been locked in a shed, had previously been hidden away. He will fully embrace the moon, literally, by diving into it. Since we see him do that, the pool literally reflects the moon, which by the way is also Lune, the fandom name, which of course the like fans will always like accept them, right? We fans give them strength. And honestly, I think this is symbolically showing that he accepts that part of himself now. At this music video, he doesn't transform ever once in it, but he starts to slowly accept the differences that he has and that he is a wolf and everything that comes with it. Some of the lyrics might support this as well, and this is kind of, you're gonna have to stay with me here because it's a little bit out there and a little bit based off of something that hasn't been shown or confirmed yet. But a lot of the lyrics to me seem like something is happening internally. It's an internal conversation beneath their skin. Slowly awakened under the skin. Where are you? I'm simply searching. One more time. Where are you? Etc, etc, etc. It sort of sounds like a dialogue. And it does like feel originally like, of course, it's the other people searching for him, and it can definitely be read that way. And that completely fits perfectly with what we're seeing. But there's another interpretation, and I wonder if it's like him and his like inner wolf, which is kind of a trope I've seen in other werewolf related stories, where their inner wolf kind of has like its own personality, kind of like, oh, the wolf inside wants to run. It's not really been mentioned here, but I do wonder if that may be an aspect, since it is a pretty common trope, I think. And like I said, we don't see them ever transform from human to wolf in this music video, and I think part of that is because Kay really wants to accept himself first and feel safe first before you can actually show the worst parts of yourself, like in terms of an internal process. You know, acceptance of the self and feelings of safety are very, very important when it comes to expressing things that you originally disliked about yourself. So that is what happens before we see him transform. We have to see him accept it, even if he was transforming the whole time. Again, this is kind of more just a personal theory of mine, but I wanted to bring it up because, yeah, I feel like there was a bit of an internal war with his wolf self, you know what I mean? He was repressing it. And so it feels like it's like all of this is happening beneath the skin. He's finally accepting that part of himself. And even if the wolf itself doesn't have a personality of its own, just the idea of him accepting something that is not favorable to him makes him abnormal kind of fits in there, and it also really matches well with the whole bullying theme again. But also you're probably shouting at me, Lena, there's another reason for this lyric, because it did kind of go a little bit viral, and I think other people have talked about it pretty extensively, but there's also a book that is featured several times throughout this music video, which is called Wolves of the Beyond, Lone Wolf by Catherine Lasky. So the story is about a wolf that was sort of cast out of its pack because of his twisted paw that he was born with, and ends up being raised by a bear. They end up getting separated, stuff happens, and the bear dies. So immediately we're seeing the parallels with Kay's story here. He was originally cast out of his previous one, but adopted by the two people created by an inn, and possibly even you can see it as being adopted into the pack of Giri and Taki, Iji, and Nicholas. And we do know Giri dies, or like the pack leader, assuming that's Giri, dies. And possibly even his parents might pass away, we have no idea. So I can already see all of the similarities there. And then also Hypenating, who is one of my patrons and friends, pointed out that like the I'm right here thing that is the lyric that is frequently mentioned in the song is also in the book, basically. And when the main character hears the wolves howling in a distance, it's as if they're saying, I'm here, I'm still here. So I just wanted to bring that up because I feel like that's a pretty direct reference to the lyrics of the song, and I feel like they wrote the song with the book in mind. But also, I think this has to do with Haruha, but I'll come back to that. Anyways, so back to the music video. Kay is jumping into the water and symbolically accepting himself. He accepts his role potentially as the pack leader, he accepts himself as a wolf, depending on exactly where this happens in the timeline, or maybe it just happens altogether, I don't know. Joe is also in the pool that Kay is jumping into. In fact, I think he's probably on the other side of, like, acceptance. If Kay is on the I'm struggling to accept myself, I think Joe's like the, yeah, I'm chill with this kind of thing. Because he's already in the water there. He's already accepted his wolf. And this is assuming that he, of course, actually is a wolf right away. I don't think that you can turn people into wolves. I've never seen that mentioned in this story, The Grey City, or in the Blood Altar. Not the way that the vampires have been an issue. So I'm not sure if you can like infect someone with lycanthropy. I think you have to be born as it. So I'm just going off the assumption that, yeah, Joe is definitely already a wolf here, because he was born that way, because that's the only way that you can become a wolf. Anyways, when he sees Kay like enter the pool area, his first instinct is to hide, kind of like a wolf in waiting. Then the whole scene in the water happens, and I can't ignore that this whole scene reminds me of like HYYH BTS era, which, don't leave. Stay with me. This is in a symbolical sense. And I think they used this scene very purposefully to make it look like that because of the opposite meanings. So in HYYH BTS's story, Taeyong jumps off there and he's shown jumping into the water much like Kay is. And when he lands, he's seen struggling, kind of like as if he's drowning under the weight of everything that's happening. His own character is going through a lot of struggles in that story. And Kay's character is also struggling a lot with a lot of different things. And I think there's a big difference here between the way that the characters are responding to what happens. Because when Taehyung falls in the water, he feels alone. It's almost an opposite interpretation. But here, when Kay jumps into the water, he's immediately met with Joe, who's already there waiting for him, and they reach out together. So they're right there, right? Their hands meet, and he's not struggling under the water the way Taehyung was either. Joe is there, he accepts all of Kay's flaws, and they're both underwater, but they're not struggling and they're not going to drown because they have each other. So I do feel like they may have used that imagery to kind of play off of your expectations of what that scene means, which is actually a really common thing in filmmaking, by the way. There's some really genius filmmakers who will reference other films and then change how the scene plays out just to like play with your expectations a little bit. So it's a kind of like a filmmaking tactic. So I do kind of think that's what happened here, because the scene just looked so familiar. Anyways, from here, I think the character stories are a little bit less clear. So Haruha, I think he has a similar story to Kei, although it comes about pretty differently, I'm guessing. So in the choreography at the beginning in the music video, we see some spotlights searching for Kei because they're looking for him and saying, I'm right here, right? They find him. And then it switches out to Haruha. The spotlights find Haruha. So first they find Kei, and then they will find Haruha. And I don't really know how this will happen, but Haruha being a little different and a little out of sync with the other members, especially at the beginning, is something that we've seen in the like concept stuff, and it just really kind of fits with what I'm seeing in the music video and what I'm like picturing in my head. So in the concept videos, a lot of people had like this like old-timey recording with a date in June, and for whatever reason Haruha did not have that specific date. He had 2 other dates that did not match. And I kind of felt like it was like he was searching for them. It was the wrong spot, the wrong place, the wrong location, the wrong time, the wrong year even. And of course, in this music video, Haruha is the one filming. And we even see during his segment, it flashes to a lot of video cassettes with dates written on them. So he seems to have a tendency to hide. He hides behind the camera, but the others bring him into the spotlight. And this is just me like reading between the lines here. But I wouldn't be surprised if Haruha's character ends up like a major focus in a future music video. And in the webtoon itself, after Kei's kind of focus like makes it into the like group and stuff like that. We aren't quite there yet. I think there's a whole Yuma thing and anything else that they want to focus on first, but I have a feeling that his character's arc will be like maybe towards the end, and this is set up for what will be very, very important. And it's being teased at now and of course revealed slowly over time because this is Hybe. But there's a lot of setup for it. He's always observing, always recording, he is categorizing, and they're like, hey, you know, this makes you valuable, even if maybe he doesn't see it necessarily, or he feels like he's different or out of sync. As he says in the like teaser, you know, even he has a spot within the pack. And I bet you it focuses on that. Otherwise, Yuma's character gets a lot of focus, like I said, and his character kind of confuses me. He does seem pretty aware that Kei is in need of help. But as I mentioned, he's also not in the webtoon yet. And I feel like if he was, he would be actively trying to, like, help him. But so far, it's only Taki, Iji, and Nicholas. But I'm guessing he's the leader of his own kind of small pack, which are, like, the people that are behind him when he's on the roof. So, again, in that case, is he the pack that attacks Croc? Is he a good pack? Do they start off on friendly terms? Are they starting off fighting? Do they help each other defeat vampires? Does he help them overcome issues with the humans? Like, I don't know, that seems like a lot of things they have to deal with, right? They probably want some help from another pack, especially if they're, you know, fighting vampires, if there's some issues with rich humans who are very entitled, if there's maybe other wolf packs. I don't know. This is speculation. It would be a wild ride, and I bet you he would appreciate the help, and so I feel like that's kind of what Yuma's character is going to be. I do wonder if he's going to start off feeling like an antagonist and then becoming like a protagonist. Joining them, you know what I mean? Because obviously we see him offer friendship to Kei here. Or perhaps like it's an offer to, I don't know, combine the packs, etc. The idea is the same. And that's of course assuming that he is in a separate pack. And that's not just me completely just coming up with stuff. The rooftop setting is a bit of a strange place to do that, especially because it felt like it was focused on Kei and like the kind of like depression that he was feeling, and he's offering his friendship to help and everything like that too. So we're into the dual storytelling here, where I feel like this is both a relatable kind of feeling or an issue that people want to talk about and bring to light, and like also how you can solve it, but then also it will be something that happens within the story. It also kind of makes me wonder, like, are wolves, like, drawn to each other even if they don't consciously know that they're wolves? Because, like, I don't know, it feels like it's a huge coincidence that they end up in the inn that Kei's, like, parents own, you know what I mean? And then, like, how does Yuma find them as a pack? I don't know, it just, maybe they're, like, drawn to each other just because of the nature of it. And like I said, there's no lone wolves was one of the themes of the concept like trailer for this group. So they probably want to band together, even subconsciously. I don't know. This is not in the music video. This is just me like randomly speculating stuff. Obviously, everyone has to be in the music video because they're an actual real life group and the story is not all that goes on. And they need to focus on all the members. I do wish that they focused on more of the members, especially certain members like Fuma. I voted so much for Fuma. Please give him lines. But yeah, I guess this is probably stuff that's in the future, especially like that rooftop scene and whatnot. So yeah, there's definitely questions here. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that, Giri is the wolf in the beginning of the music video? Is he the one who dies? Is Yuma the leader of another pack? What do you think about all of their adversaries? Which one do you think is the biggest threat? Is it the humans, the vampires, other wolves? Yuma's wolves? I don't know. And then of course I just wanted to end off with asking, like, do you think we're gonna get like future point of views from the events of Blood Altar? Or do you think that's just like a music video thing where they're just helping like tie the two groups together for people who are curious? I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. Why are they showing the future as well as the past? Because the story was supposedly on the past, and yet the music video is showing some of the future. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. Alright, as it is, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video and everything was like fun, cozy, easy to understand. If you did like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up if you haven't already, and make sure to subscribe with notifications turned on so that YouTube tells you every single time I post a video. All my social media is linked in the description down below, and of course I want to give a shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. If you want to become a patron, the link is in the description down below and probably on the screen here somewhere. Alright, as it is, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay sunny, everyone. Bye!